Busy week ahead on the campaign trail. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump both fighting it out in key battleground states this week.
And for more on this heightened stretch of the campaign season, we are joined now by former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. Good to see you, Mayor.
It's good to be here. Thanks.
Good to have you here. So Vice President Harris has a slight edge in the national polls. How does she continue to build on this momentum? What do they have to do to keep the support going?
I got to tell you, we've never seen anything like this. This turnaround in the space of just a few weeks is extraordinary. I give her a lot of credit. I also give her credit for making the choice of Tim Walz, who has really helped to energize that momentum. But I think the key thing is to stay positive, meaning, you know, she's gotten the offer of the debates. I think she should accept all three debates. I'm not sure Trump will actually follow through on it. You know, she's gotten the opportunity, of course, to answer the Republican critique on media opportunities. She doesn't have to do that right now, but I think in the coming week or two it would be great. You know, do a press conference. She's riding high. Show confidence, show strength, show openness. I think that's what's working for her. I think we're also seeing the authentic Kamala Harris. And, you know, she worked for Joe Biden. She had to follow whatever the message was of the White House. Now we're getting to see her herself in charge. And I think that's working for her.
Let's talk about her vice presidential pick. The GOP has been attacking Governor Walz on how he handled the unrest in 2020 after George Floyd was killed by police. I'm curious your thoughts on this.
Well, this is real personal for me because in New York City, of course, we were the epicenter of the pandemic. And then when the George Floyd protests happened, we had some real challenges, and it was not easy. I think we have to recognize for a governor or a mayor, that combination of a global pandemic and social unrest is essentially unprecedented. But I gotta really give credit to Tim Walz. He's the guy who brought stability back to Minneapolis. I mean, unfortunately, the local government was not able to handle it, and they turned to the state. And, you know, mobilizing the National Guard in a way that actually is safe and effective, sending the guardsmen into an urban environment, that is not something you do overnight. You have to do that carefully. And he did, and it worked. So I'm not surprised they're attempting that criticism, but I think he should come right back to the fact that he is the one who solved the crisis, and it was a very tough nut to crack.
Mayor, let's talk about some of the claims that the former president has made. He claims he delivered lower inflation and better prices during his presidency. So how does the Harris-Walz ticket respond to that?
Well, look, I think it's unfair for Donald Trump to act like there wasn't a pandemic, which threw everything into, you know, a kind of overdrive in terms of inflation, particularly with that horrible global supply chain crisis. That was really one of the drivers of the inflation. And that would have affected Trump had he stuck around as well. I think, though, on the other hand, what Biden didn't do enough was talk about the solutions. And in fact, Biden did some great work lowering drug costs, for example, prescription drug costs. I think this is an opportunity area for Kamala Harris. She's put forward, I think, a stronger message than Biden did on economics with her freedom vision. I think that's powerful, but talk to Americans who are hurting because of inflation and give them a sense of what she's going to do. She said she's going to go after the companies, the corporations that are price gouging. I think that's fantastic. I think she should go deeper into that because people want to hear, how is that going to work? How is it going to reach me and my home?
And we are seeing Trump and Harris kind of going at each other a little bit. Trump says Harris is copying his policy with her new pledge to eliminate taxes on tips for service workers. Is she taking a page from his playbook?
I mean, first of all, like calling someone a copycat, that takes us back to like kindergarten. I mean, it's wonderful sometimes to see both parties agree on something. There are a few other areas where we find that as well, but I don't care who first said the idea. It's an idea, honestly, of making sure that folks who work in restaurants, for example, get better compensation. That's much more consistent with the Democratic Party. We're the ones that have consistently raised minimum wage, for example. I don't think it's at all unusual that Kamala Harris would say that's something I believe in, I'm going to fight for. I think she's a much more believable messenger, honestly, because a lot of times Trump says he's going to do things and doesn't. So I don't care who said it first. I care that she means it, and I think a lot of people are going to hear it.
Mayor, we should also point out that in the last week, we haven't seen Trump and Vance campaigning together. So what type of message does it send to voters?
I think it sends a message that the president's having some buyer's remorse about J.D. Vance, the former president, I should say. Look, Vance has been a surprise. I mean, when he was chosen, I think a lot of people have said, well, here's this guy who had a best-selling book. He's been very successful in presenting himself in the media. He sort of had a meteoric rise. It kind of made sense. But then all these extreme sort of, eye-catching comments. I mean, I think to some extent J.D. Vance's approach got the better of him. He knew how to be controversial and get eyeballs and get attention and get clicks. But some of what he said, like the famous cat ladies concept, like that really came back to bite him. I think Trump's worried, and he doesn't want to amplify Vance, so he's keeping some distance. I also don't think they bring much in the way of chemistry, the way Harris and Walz obviously do.
All right, former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, thank you for coming on, and we hope to see you again soon.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right.